Hello friends, this is tutorial series on how to use Ajax in Node.js Express application. And under this series, we have built CRUD application in Node.js. By using Ajax, MySQL database and Bootstrap Modal, and in this part, we will show you how to insert or add data into MySQL table in Node.js by using Ajax with Bootstrap framework. Here we have to make single-page CRUD application in Node.js, so here we will use Bootstrap Modal for get data, and by using Ajax, we will insert data into MySQL table in Node.js. In previous part, we have already download Node.js Express application. And we have also show you how to fetch data from MySQL table and display on web page. By using Ajax, now in this part, we have used Ajax for insert data. So for this, we have go to text editor, and here we have to open sample data template views file. And here, we want to create add data button, so for this here, we have to write button type is equal to button, with id attribute is equal to add data. After this, here we have to write class attribute is equal to button, button success, button small and float end class. And in button text, we have to write add, so here our add data button is ready. So when we have clicked on this button, then add data modal will be pop up on the web page. And below here, we can see that we have used Bootstrap Modal code. And here we have to write id attribute is equal to action modal. So this attribute value, we will use for pop-up modal on web page. After this, we want to create one HTML form, and under this modal. So here, we have to write form tag with method is equal to post. And after this, we have to write id attribute is equal to sample form. This id attribute value, we will use for get form data. Now we have go to modal header class tag, and here also we have to write id attribute is equal to dynamic modal title. And this id attribute value, we will use for display dynamic modal header title. Now we have go to modal body class area, and under this, we want to create form field. So first we have to create field for get first name data. So for this, here we have to write input type is equal to text, with name is equal to first name, and id attribute value is equal to first name. So under this tag, we can write first name data. Next, we need to create form field for get last name data. So for this, here we have to write input type is equal to text, with name is equal to last name, and id attribute value is equal to last name. So from this tag, we can get last name data. Next, we need to create select box for get gender data. So for this, here we have to write select tag with name is equal to gender. After this, we have to write id attribute value is equal to gender. And under this select box, we have to create two option tag for select gender. So from this select box tag, we can select gender data. Next, we need to create one form field for get age data. So for this, here we have to write input type is equal to number, with name is equal to age, and id attribute value is equal to age. So from this tag, we can get age data. Now we have go into Modal Footer tag, and under this tag, we have to write input type is equal to hidden, with name is equal to id, and id attribute is equal to id. So under this field, we will store id table column data. After this, we have to create one another hidden field, with name is equal to action, and id attribute is equal to action, with value attribute is equal to add. This hidden field value, we will use for define CRUD operation action. And lastly, for submit form data, here we have to create one button for submit form data. So for this, here we have to write button type is equal to submit, and class is equal to button, and button primary. And in id attribute, we have to write action button. So when we have click on this button, then form data will be submitted. So here our modal is ready. Now when we have to click on add button, then this modal must be pop up. So for this, here in jQuery code part, we have to write $selector with button id add data. And after this, we have to write click event with callback function. So when we have click on the add button, so this block of code will execute. And under this block, first we want to reset modal header title. So here we have to write $with header 5 tag id dynamic modal title with text function, and under this, we have to write add data. So it will display add data on modal header title. After this, we want to reset all form field. So for this, here we have to write $with form it sample form with 0 index dot reset function. So it will clear all form field data, and next we need to set hidden action field value. So here, we have to write $with hidden field id action with value function. And under this function, we have to write add. So here we have to set hidden field value. Next, we want to set submit button text. So here we have to write $with submit button id action button with text function, and under this, we have to write add, so it will display add text on the submit button. And lastly, we want to pop up modal on the web page. So for this, here we have to write $with modal id action modal with modal function. And under this function, we have to write show event, so it will pop up modal on the web page. Now we want to check output in the browser, so we have go to command prompt. And goes into our Node.js working directory, and after this, here we have to run this command, so this command will start Node.js server. Now here in browser, we have hit base URL / sample data URL in the browser. So here we can see that MySQL database data has been fetched and display on web page using Ajax. And above it, we can see that one add button has been appear, which we can see here. Now we have to click on the button. So after click on the button, here we can see that modal has been pop up with simple HTML form. So here we can fill data, and we will submit this data by using Ajax to Node.js server-side script. So for this, we have go to sample data template file, and here we have to write $with form it sample form with on function. And under this function, we have to write submit event and callback function with event parameter. So when form has been submitted, then this block of code will execute. And under this block, first we have to write event.prevent default function. And after this, we have to start write Ajax request. So in Ajax first option, we have to write URL and in value, we have to write base URL / roots file name / action root name. So it will send Ajax request to this file. Now in second option, we have to write method, and in value, we have to write post, so it will use post method for send data. In third option, we have to write data, and in value, we have to write $with form it sample form with serialize function. So it will create URL encoded text string by serializing form values. In fourth option, we have to write data type, and in value, we have to write JSON. So it will receive data from server in JSON format. After this, we have to write before send callback function, so this function will be called before send Ajax request. And under this function, we have to write $with submit button id action button with attribute function with two parameter like disabled and disabled, so it will disable submit button. And in last option, we have to write success callback function, so this function will be called after Ajax request has been completed. And this function has been received data from server, which will be get from this data variable. Now under this function, first we want to enable submit button, so for this, here we have to write $with submit button id action button with attribute function. with two parameters like disabled and false, so it will enable submit button. And here, first we want to display success message on the web page. So here, we have to create one span tag with it is equal to message, so we will display success message, and under this tag. Now for display success message, here we have to write $with span tag id message with HTML function, and under this function, we have to write division tag with class is equal to alert and alert success class, and between this tag, we have to write data.success. So it will display success message on the web page, and after this, we want to hide modal from web page. So here we have to write $with modal id action modal with modal function. And under this function, we have to write hide, so it will remove modal from web page. After this, we want to display latest inserted data in HTML table. So for this, here we have called load data function, so it will fetch data from MySQL and display on web page in HTML table by using Ajax. After this, we want to automatically remove success message from web page. So for this, here we have to write JavaScript set timeout function. And under this function, we have to write $with span tag id message with HTML function. And under this function, we have to write blank value, so it will remove success message. And after this, here we have to write 5000, so after 5 seconds, success message will be removed. So here our jQuery code is ready. Now we have go to sample data JavaScript file. And here in action root, first we have to write if statement, and under condition, we have to write action variable value is equal to add. So if this condition true, then it will execute if block of code. Under this block, first we want to store form data in the local variable. So for this, here we have to write first name variable is equal to request.body.firstname. So here we have store form first name field data into local variable. After this, for store last name field data, so here we have to write last name variable is equal to request.body.lastname. Next, for store age form data into local variable, so for this, here we have to write age variable is equal to request.body.age. And lastly, for store gender form field data into local variable. So for this, here we have to write gender variable is equal to request.body.gender. So this way, we have store form data into local variable. Now we want to write insert data query. So for this, here we have to write query variable is equal to insert into sample data table with table column like first name, last name, age and gender, with values get from $expression first name variable, $expression last name variable, $expression age variable, and $sign with gender variable. So this way, we can define variable in query under Node.js. Now we want to execute above insert query. So for this, here we have to write database.query function. So this function has been used for execute MySQL query. And under this function first parameter, we have to write MySQL insert query. So for this, here we have to write query variable in which we have store MySQL insert, and in second parameter, we have to write callback function. And this function return two data, like error variable and data variable. Now we want to send response to Ajax request in JSON format. So for this, here we have to write response.json function. Under this function, we have to write message key. And in value, we have to write data added message. So this function will send response to Ajax request in JSON format. So here our code is ready. Now we want to check output in the browser. So first we have go to command prompt, and here first we have to stop this process. After this, again we have to start Node.js server by using this command. So friends, first we have to refresh web page, and after refresh of web page, here we can see that Add Data button and MySQL table data has been displayed in HTML table using Ajax. Now for Add Data, we have to click on Add button, and after click on Add button, here we can see that Modal has been pop up in the browser. So here in Modal, we can see HTML form with different field and with Add button. So now we have to fill all form field one by one. Once we have fill all form field, now we have to click on the Add button, and after click on Add button, here we can see that Modal has been removed from web page, and here we can success message on the web page. And on the web page, we can see that lastly added data has been displayed under HTML table. So this way, we can do add or insert data into MySQL table in Node.js Express application by using Ajax. In next part, we will learn how to edit or update existing MySQL data in Node.js Express application using Ajax. Lastly, thank you for watching this tutorial, and we will be meet in next part.